Tell somebody next to you, it's not about distance, it's about destiny. You see, sometimes God will let you be close enough to touch it, but not yet ready to hold it. He'll let you walk right beside the blessing, sit right next to the breakthrough, live in close proximity to the promise, and still say, not yet. Because proximity doesn't mean possession. You can be near the fire and still not burn with it. You can be in the crowd and still miss the Christ. But when God decides it's your time, He'll take what's been close to you and pull it into you. Oh, I feel this for somebody. You've been near it long enough. Get ready, because proximity is about to turn into purpose. Proximity without preparation leads to frustration. That phrase alone carries the weight of many people's lives, people standing close to greatness, near opportunity, within touch and distance of destiny, yet unable to grasp it fully because preparation hasn't yet done its work. There's a difference between being near the promise and being ready to handle it. Proximity gives you access, but preparation gives you authority. Without the shaping, the molding, the pruning, proximity can become a tormenting reminder of what could be rather than a testimony of what is. Think about how many people have lived their lives standing on the edge of purpose. They saw the promised land like Moses did, close enough to see it, but not ready to step into it. They had the connection. They had the visibility. They were even standing in the right room, but they weren't yet prepared to handle what was inside that room. And because of that, what was supposed to be a blessing started to feel like a burden. That's what happens when proximity outruns preparation. You end up frustrated because you're close, but not equipped. There are seasons when God will intentionally let you get close to what you desire, not to tease you, but to teach you. He'll let you walk near it, smell it, sense it, see it, and still not let you take it. Because He knows that if you grab it before you're grounded, it will crush you. The worst thing God could do is give you access to something your character can't sustain. That's why He holds back. Not because He's punishing you, but because He's preserving you. Proximity without preparation produces frustration, but preparation and proximity produces transformation. It's easy to misread the frustration of waiting. When you're in close proximity, you can mistake delay for denial. You start to question yourself, question God, question your purpose. You think, why would God let me get this close if it wasn't meant for me? But proximity isn't God's. No, it's His not yet. It's His way of training your capacity. When you're near something powerful, you start to absorb lessons that only proximity can teach. You learn how it moves, how it breathes, how it functions. You get a sense of the rhythm of what's coming even before you hold it. Consider Joseph in the palace of Pharaoh. Before he ever sat on the throne, he was close to it through service. His proximity was preparation. He managed Potiphar's house before managing Egypt. He ran the prison before he ran the palace. Every close encounter was a rehearsal for responsibility. But imagine if he had mistaken proximity for possession. He could have grown bitter, saying, I'm close enough to see the favor, but not enough to live in it. Yet he stayed faithful in the frustration, and his preparation turned proximity into promotion. Some of you are living right now in the tension between close and call. You're not far off. You can feel the weight of what's coming, but the doors haven't opened yet. That's not failure. That's formation. God is still working something in you that will keep you standing when the door does open, because the truth is access without stability leads to collapse. God doesn't want to bring you close to it if you can't carry it. Look at David, anointed as king, but sent back to the field, close to the throne, but still tending sheep. He was already chosen, but not yet prepared. His anointing didn't immediately translate into authority because his character needed development in the quiet places. So when he finally stepped into proximity with Goliath, his preparation gave him power. The same slingshot he mastered in obscurity became his weapon in visibility. That's the beauty of preparation. It converts proximity into destiny. Frustration often reveals that we're standing too close to something we're not ready for. It's not punishment, it's process. God uses frustration to show us the gap between our desire and our development. That gap isn't meant to discourage you, it's meant to drive you deeper into preparation. Because every time you refine your gift, strengthen your foundation, and mature your mindset, you shorten the distance between proximity and possession. Sometimes we get so caught up in wanting the platform that we overlook the preparation that keeps us there. You can be close to influence but lack the integrity to sustain it. You can be near opportunity but not have the discipline to maximize it. You can be close to love but not yet healed enough to receive it. That's why God won't let proximity substitute for preparation, because He wants what you receive to last. So the next time you find yourself in close proximity to what you've been praying for, don't let frustration make you reckless. Let it make you ready. Don't rush what's ripening. Just because you're near, it doesn't mean it's time to take it. Some fruit looks ripe on the outside but needs more time in the sun. God knows exactly when to release it. He knows how to turn your proximity into purpose, your waiting into wisdom, your frustration into fuel. Proximity is God's invitation to prepare. When you feel the nearness of your next season, that's the signal that it's time to sharpen your tools, strengthen your faith, and stretch your capacity. Because when the moment finally comes, you won't have time to prepare. You'll only have time to perform. So don't despise being close and not yet complete. You're in the training ground, not the rejection zone. Every moment you spend preparing is one less moment you'll spend frustrated. When you're ready, what's been close to you will move toward you. And when preparation meets proximity, that's when promise becomes possession. Nearness tests your readiness. There's something divine about being close to what you've prayed for, close enough to feel it, see it, even taste it, but not yet fully possessing it. That's where the test comes in. Nearness isn't just a sign that you're almost there, it's an examination of whether you're truly ready. Before God hands you the next level, He'll bring you near it to see how you handle the atmosphere of it. He'll let you stand beside greatness before He gives you greatness, because nearness reveals not what you want, but what you're ready for. When you get close to the promise, everything in you gets exposed. Your patience, your pride, your motives, your mindset, proximity brings it all to the surface. You don't know how much pride you still carry until you stand next to someone who has what you desire. You don't know how much insecurity still lingers until you're in the presence of what you've been pursuing. That's why nearness is such a powerful test. It's not about denying you access, it's about diagnosing your alignment. Before David ever became king, he spent years near the throne. He played music in Saul's court, soothed Saul's spirit, and watched the inner workings of leadership. He wasn't king yet, but he was close. And it was in that nearness that his readiness was tested. Could he serve the man who sat in the chair he'd been anointed for? Could he stay humble when his destiny was standing across the room? God used that proximity to prepare his heart. Because if David couldn't handle proximity without pride, he couldn't handle the throne without corruption. Nearness exposes the areas that distance can hide. When you're far from your destiny, you can pretend to be ready. You can talk big, post big, dream big, but when you get close, pretense won't sustain you. Nearness is when God peels back the layers and says, "No, let's see if you're ready to carry what you've been praying for." It's easy to worship in the wilderness when nothing's on the line. It's another thing to stay faithful when the palace doors start to open. Think about Jesus and his disciples. He brought them near, not because they were perfect, but because proximity would reveal what needed purification. Peter swore he was ready. He said, "Lord, I'll die for you." But when the pressure of nearness came, when the fire was burning close and the questions were being asked, Peter's readiness was tested. He denied the very one he had pledged his life to. Yet even that failure was part of the process, because the test of nearness doesn't just expose weakness, it refines it. When Jesus restored Peter, it wasn't to shame him, it was to show him that true readiness is born through failure, not fantasy. God will often use nearness as both mirror and mentor. It reflects who you are and teaches you who you must become. When you get close to your calling, you start to feel the weight of it. The atmosphere changes. The demands increase. The pressure intensifies. That's when God whispers, "This is what it feels like," not to intimidate you, but to initiate you. He wants you to know that what looks glamorous from a distance comes with a cross up close. And if you can't carry the cross, you can't wear the crown. Nearness tests not only your readiness, but also your restraint. Some people fail the test not because they're unworthy, but because they're impatient. They grab too soon. They move too fast. They try to make things happen before the time is right. Saul did that. When Samuel didn't arrive as quickly as expected, Saul offered the sacrifice himself, something he wasn't called to do. He was close to leadership, but not ready to handle the pressure of waiting. His impatience in proximity cost him the throne, because in the kingdom of God, obedience is the true measure of readiness. Every time you get close to something significant, you'll face the temptation to force it. You'll feel the pull to act on impulse. But nearness is God's classroom, not your playground. It's where he trains your discipline. He wants to see if you can stay calm while close, if you can stay faithful while waiting, if you can stay focused while watching others walk into what you're still praying for. That's readiness. That's maturity. Even Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane faced the test of nearness. He was close to the cross, close to his purpose, close to the fulfillment of everything he came to do, but the weight of it pressed so heavily that he cried out, "If it be possible, let this cup pass from me." In that moment, his readiness was proven not by avoidance, but by surrender. He didn't run from nearness, he yielded to it. That's what readiness looks like, not perfection, but submission. Sometimes God will bring you near something to show you it's not yet time. You'll stand beside it and it won't open. You'll touch it and it won't move. That's not rejection, that's revelation. God's saying you're in the right place, but still in process. He's teaching you how to hold peace in the presence of promise. Because if you can maintain peace while you're close, you'll be powerful when you possess it. When you feel yourself getting close, don't assume that means it's time to grab. It might mean it's time to grow. Let nearness humble you, not hurry you. Let it stretch your faith, not strain your focus. Because the closer you get, the more crucial your posture becomes. Pride, impatience, and comparison can sabotage you right at the threshold. That's why God uses nearness as a refining fire to burn away everything that can't go with you. So if you're standing near your next level and it feels like the door still hasn't opened, don't be discouraged. It's just the test of readiness. God's checking to see if you can handle the nearness without losing your focus, if you can stand in the heat without losing your humility, if you can wait in faith without walking away. Nearness is sacred. It's proof that God trusts you enough to be close, but wise enough not to release it until you're ready. The test isn't meant to break you, it's meant to build you. Because when the day finally comes, when nearness turns into newness, you'll be ready not just to receive it, but to sustain it. And that's when destiny will say, now what you're close to reveals what God is cultivating in you. Every season of proximity has a purpose. When you find yourself surrounded by certain people, environments, or opportunities, it's not by accident, it's by alignment. God uses what you're near to shape what's growing inside of you. Sometimes He positions you close to greatness to stir up greatness. Other times, He places you near conflict to refine your character. Either way, what you're around is a mirror to what God is maturing within. Life has a way of drawing you into circles that reflect your calling. If you pay attention to your surroundings, you'll start to see divine hints of what God is preparing you for. Before David ever became a warrior, he was surrounded by lions and bears. Before Joseph ever governed a nation, he served in Potiphar's house, observing authority and administration. Before Esther ever became queen, she lived in the palace, learning royal customs and court culture. What they were close to revealed what God was cultivating. Proximity wasn't random, it was prophetic. Sometimes you wonder, why am I here? Why has God placed me around these people or in this place? But if you look deeper, you'll realize that the environment you're in is training the part of you that will be required for the next level. God will use your surroundings to shape your spirit. You may think you're just working a job, volunteering at a church, or dealing with a difficult person. But God sees beyond the surface. He's cultivating patience through that difficult boss, humility through that low place, discipline through that tight schedule, and empathy through that painful experience. The people you're close to also reveal something about calling you carry. God often positions you near those who represent a version of what you're becoming. That's why you can't afford to live with jealousy. The person you're tempted to envy might actually be the person God placed near you to expand your vision. When Elisha was close to Elijah, he wasn't just serving, he was observing. The miracles Elijah performed, the faith he demonstrated, the authority he walked in, all of it was shaping something inside Elisha. He wasn't there by coincidence. Proximity was impartation. If you find yourself in a season where you're close to people who challenge you, stretch you, or even frustrate you, don't run from it. God is using that proximity to develop qualities you didn't know you needed. Sometimes He'll place you near pride to teach you humility. He'll place you near chaos to teach you peace. He'll place you near excellence to raise your standard. What you're around reveals what God is doing within. Think about Jesus and the disciples again. He didn't just teach them through words. He taught them through nearness. Walking with Him daily, seeing miracles, watching His compassion, His silence before accusers, His prayer life. All of that was cultivating something in them. He was forming apostles through proximity. What they saw would later become what they did. The power they witnessed up close was the same power that would later flow through them. Sometimes, though, God will let you be near something that feels completely opposite of your destiny. You'll wonder, Why would God allow me to be around so much pain, confusion, or struggle? Because what you're close to in this season might be the soil that grows your strength. You don't learn endurance in comfort. You learn it in conflict. You don't develop faith when everything makes sense. You develop it when you're close to uncertainty. God uses proximity as a tool of preparation. Consider Moses, raised in Pharaoh's palace while his people were enslaved. He was close to oppression and privilege at the same time. That unique proximity gave him compassion for the oppressed and understanding of the oppressor. God was cultivating a deliverer through exposure. Moses' environment was not random, it was revelation. The same palace that once confined his people would later release them under his leadership. So take a look at your life. Who are you near? What are you near? What kind of energy, challenges, or opportunities surround you? These aren't coincidences, they're clues. If you're near leadership, God might be cultivating leadership in you. If you're near brokenness, God might be cultivating healing you. If you're near excellence, He's raising your expectation. If you're near testing, He's strengthening your faith. God will never let you stand near something that doesn't serve your development. Even painful proximity serves a purpose. Being close to betrayal taught Joseph how to lead with mercy. Being close to rejection taught David how to rely on God's approval. Being close to suffering taught Paul how to persevere with grace. Every environment has an assignment. That's why discernment matters. Not everything you're close to deserves your attention, but everything you're close to reveals information about your direction. If you're consistently drawn to people with vision, it's because God is awakening vision within you. If you're uncomfortable around mediocrity, it's because excellence is growing inside of you. God matches your proximity to your potential. You can tell what season you're in by what surrounds you. Sometimes you're in a pruning season, surrounded by loss and letting go. Other times you're in a planting season, surrounded by new ideas and opportunities. And sometimes you're in a pressure season, surrounded by challenges that don't make sense yet, but all of it is cultivation. God is using proximity to produce maturity. So instead of asking, why am I here? Start asking, what is this place producing in me? Because God doesn't waste proximity. Every environment, every relationship, every challenge carries a lesson. The question is whether you'll recognize what He's cultivating. The truth is, proximity is never passive. It's either pushing you toward your purpose or pulling you away from it. That's why you have to guard who and what you allow yourself to be close to. If it doesn't reflect the kind of person God is making you into, it might be time to create distance. Because proximity shapes identity. When you understand that what you're close to reveals what God is cultivating in you, you start to see every moment differently. You stop complaining about the hard places because you recognize their holy ground. You stop resenting the waiting because you realize it's working something in you. And you stop fearing change because you know God is cultivating capacity. What you're close to is not just about where you are, it's about who you're becoming. And when you embrace that truth, every season, every circle, every circumstance becomes sacred because even when you can't see it, God is cultivating something in you that your proximity is preparing you to release. Distance protects what proximity will one day deliver. There are times in life when God deliberately keeps you at a distance from the very thing you desire most. It's not because He's withholding it from you, because He's protecting it and protecting you. Distance can feel like delay, but it's often divine preservation. God knows that some promises need protection until the right time, the right heart, and the right maturity align. If he allowed you too close too soon, what was meant to bless you might break you. We often assume that closeness equals favor, but distance can be just as much a sign of divine love. Sometimes God says, I'll show it to you, but I won't let you touch it yet. That's not punishment. That's wisdom. He's keeping both you and the promise safe from premature exposure. The same way, a seed must stay buried until its roots are strong enough to break through the soil. Some blessings need distance to develop. If the soil opens too early, the seed dies. When you study the lives of people God used greatly, you'll see a pattern of distance before destiny. Joseph was given a dream, then sent away. David was anointed king, then pushed back into obscurity. Moses was born to deliver Israel, but God sent him into the wilderness for 40 years. Each of them experienced distance, not as rejection, but as refinement. God used isolation to insulate what he was building. The time apart wasn't wasted. It was preparation in disguise. Distance is the invisible fence that guards divine timing. It keeps immature hands from touching sacred things. It ensures that what God intends for you won't be corrupted by the wrong season or the wrong company. When God puts space between you and something, he's creating room for development, both in you and in it. The promise must mature just as much as the person. You might be ready for it emotionally, but it might not yet be ready structurally. So God holds you apart, not to discourage you, but to synchronize the season. Think about Jesus and Lazarus. When word reached Jesus that his friend was sick, the Bible says he stayed where he was 2 more days. He didn't rush to Lazarus immediately. He allowed distance to do its work. Why? Because the miracle required that delay. If Jesus had come early, he would have healed Lazarus, but by waiting, he raised him. Distance turned healing into resurrection. What looked like neglect was actually strategy. In the same way, God sometimes lets you sit in seasons of waiting, watching, and wondering, because he knows that distance will deepen your dependence. When everything you want feels just out of reach, that's when faith becomes real. Proximity can make you comfortable, distance makes you desperate, and desperation draws revelation. You start praying differently, thinking differently, trusting differently. You learn that what's out of reach isn't out of God's control. Distance also protects you from distraction. When God's preparing something big, he often pulls you away from noise, opinions, and temptations that could sabotage the process. You'll find yourself separated from certain people, places, and patterns. Not because something's wrong with them, but because something sacred is happening in you. God will use distance to detox your spirit from dependency on anything but him. That space becomes the womb of transformation. It's hard, though, to appreciate distance when all you want is closeness. When you've seen the vision, tasted the promise, or felt the pull of destiny, being far from it feels painful. You start to question, did I miss it? Did I do something wrong? But distance doesn't mean denial. It means God is still designing. He's arranging pieces you can't see yet. He's preparing connections, opening doors, and maturing your capacity behind the scenes. You're not being left out. You're being set apart. Even nature testifies to this principle. The sun, for instance, sits at a perfect distance from the earth. Any closer, and we'd burn; any farther, and we'd freeze. That distance protects life. The same God who set the planets in orbit understands the distance required between you and your destiny. He knows how close you can stand without being consumed. He knows how far he needs to keep you to protect the process. Sometimes the distance is between where you are and where you want to be. Other times, it's between who you are and who you need to become. God uses space to grow you into the version of yourself that can handle what's ahead. Because destiny is not just about destination, it's about preparation. If he brought you into it now, your habits might betray you, your emotions might overwhelm you, or your insecurities might sabotage you. Distance gives God time to strengthen what's weak, heal what's broken, and refine what's raw. There's also a protective layer for the promise itself. Just as you wouldn't expose a newborn to harsh weather, God won't expose a promise before it's ready. Some relationships, careers, or callings are still in incubation. He's nurturing them out of sight so they can survive in the light. You may not see movement, but don't mistake stillness for stagnation. Growth often happens in secret. Think of the Israelites on their way to the promised land. God could have taken them on a shorter route, but he chose a longer one. The Bible says he led them the long way around so they wouldn't face war and lose heart. In other words, distance was protection. They thought God was delaying them, but he was developing them. The same God still works that way when he stretches the journey. It's because he knows what the shortcut would cost. So when you feel distance, don't fight it. Don't resent it. Lean into it. That distance might be the only thing keeping you from destruction. Let it teach you patience. Deepen your roots and clarify your motives. Because when the time is right, God will close the gap himself. What once felt far will suddenly feel familiar. The door that seemed locked will swing open effortlessly, and you'll realize the waiting wasn't wasted. Distance protects what proximity will one day deliver. When the season shifts and God brings you near, you'll appreciate the process that kept you safe. You'll recognize that every moment of waiting was a shield around your purpose. You'll walk into your destiny with gratitude, not arrogance, with humility, not haste, because distance didn't deny you, it designed you. And when God finally brings you close, you'll be ready to carry what he's been preparing for you all along. When proximity meets purpose, manifestation happens. There's a sacred moment in every believer's journey when everything that's been circling around you suddenly comes together, when what you've been near to finally connects with what you've been created for. That's the moment when destiny takes shape, when vision becomes visible, and when all the waiting, testing, and preparing start to make sense. Proximity alone can't produce it, and purpose alone can't sustain it. But when the two align, manifestation is inevitable. Manifestation doesn't happen by accident. It's the result of divine timing, a collision between readiness and opportunity, between obedience and destiny. You can be in the right place at the wrong time and miss it, or you can be in the right time with the wrong heart and lose it. But when you're aligned in both position and posture, God releases what's been reserved. The things that once felt distant suddenly begin to move toward you. That's when proximity turns into possession. Purpose is powerful, but it needs a place to land. You can carry purpose for years and never see it manifest because you haven't yet stepped into the environment that activates it. That's why proximity matters. God strategically positions you near people, places, and moments that awaken what he put in you. When you finally arrive in the space designed for your gift, something inside of you recognizes it. It's like a divine echo. Your spirit says, "This is what I was made for." Think of Joseph. For years, his purpose lived inside of him as a dream. He carried it through betrayal, slavery, and prison. But none of that stopped the purpose. It was just waiting for proximity. The moment he stood before Pharaoh, purpose and proximity collided. In one conversation, what he'd been carrying privately manifested publicly. Every pit, Every false accusation, every delay was leading him to the right proximity, the palace where his gift would finally make sense. The same is true for you. You may have been waiting, wondering why the doors haven't opened yet, why the opportunities seem closed but not complete. It's because God is aligning proximity with purpose. He doesn't just want you near the blessing, He wants you prepared for it, because when purpose meets proximity prematurely, the manifestation can't sustain itself. Timing matters. The promise needs to meet the prepared. When proximity meets purpose, the atmosphere shifts. You begin to attract what was assigned to you. Divine connections form. Conversations lead to clarity. Resources align. You start seeing signs that the season is changing, not because you forced it, but because you've become fit for it. The soil finally recognizes the seed. What you've been working on in silence begins to speak for itself in the open. That's manifestation. Even Jesus' ministry followed this pattern. For 30 years, he lived in obscurity, full of purpose, but waiting for proximity. When John the Baptist appeared and Jesus stepped into the Jordan River, proximity met purpose. Heaven opened and the Spirit descended. What had been hidden for decades suddenly manifested. It wasn't that Jesus became powerful in that moment. He always was. But proximity activated the assignment. That's how manifestation works. It doesn't create purpose, it reveals it. What's been hidden within you gets pulled out by divine encounters and ordained environments. Sometimes all it takes is one moment, one meeting, one act of obedience to unlock what's been waiting inside you. That's why you can't despise the waiting season, because proximity is something only God can arrange. You can prepare yourself, but you can't place yourself. That's God's job. When proximity meets purpose, there's often a sense of divine ease. What once felt forced begins to flow. The connections come naturally, the timing feels right, and doors open that no man can shut. That's not coincidence, that's confirmation. It's the evidence that heaven and earth are in agreement. When your purpose aligns with God's placement, you no longer have to chase what's already chosen you. But manifestation isn't just about external success. It's about internal alignment. When proximity meets purpose, peace follows. You stop striving and start walking in rhythm with grace. You realize that what's yours doesn't require manipulation. You stop trying to prove your value because you understand your value was already proven when God gave you purpose. Proximity just gives it a platform. Sometimes the manifestation you're waiting for isn't a position or a promotion. It's clarity. It's the moment when you finally understand why certain things had to happen, why certain people left, why certain doors closed. You see the wisdom of God in the timeline of your life. That understanding itself is a manifestation, the revelation that everything really did work together for your good. Manifestation also requires stewardship. When proximity meets purpose and the door finally opens, you have to be ready to sustain what you've received. God doesn't just want you to reach manifestation, He wants you to remain in it. That's why He allowed all those tests before this point. Every season of waiting was training your hands for this harvest. Every time you were close but not there, God was building endurance, humility, and wisdom, because manifestation without maturity leads to mismanagement. You'll know you're stepping into manifestation when the things that used to intimidate you now inspire you. When opportunities that once overwhelmed you now feel natural. When what was once a dream now feels like your daily reality. You'll find yourself walking in rooms that used to intimidate you and realizing you belong here. That's when proximity has fulfilled its purpose. So if you're standing in a season where things are aligning, where you can feel the nearness of something divine, lean in. Don't run from it. Don't shrink back in false humility. God has prepared this moment. The same way Esther's beauty met the king's favor, the same way David's courage met Goliath's challenge, your purpose is about to meet its platform. And when it does, manifestation won't be something you chase, it'll be something you carry. Because manifestation isn't magic, it's maturity meeting moment. It's the visible evidence of invisible preparation. When proximity finally aligns with purpose, everything God has been building within you becomes undeniable. The world sees what heaven already knew, that you were made for this. And when that moment comes, you won't have to explain it. The fruit will speak for itself. Tell somebody, I'm closer than I've ever been. You see, every step, every struggle, every season where you felt near but not yet there, it wasn't wasted. God has been using proximity to prepare you for possession, the frustration, the waiting, the wondering. It was proof that something was forming, because if it didn't matter, you wouldn't feel the pull of it. The tension is evidence that destiny is drawing near. Close proximity is not punishment, it's prophecy. It's heaven's way of whispering, get ready, you're almost there. God lets you walk beside the blessing before he puts it in your hands. He lets you serve what you'll one day lead. He lets you witness what you'll one day wield, because he wants you to recognize the weight of what's coming. You've been close for a reason. The nearness was never meant to tease you. It was meant to train you. Every door that didn't open built discernment. Every delay built discipline. Every tool built depth. God was refining your readiness in the realm of proximity. And now, oh, I feel this. The distance is closing. What you've been near to is about to move toward you. What's been circling your life is about to come into alignment. The promises of God are not lost. They're simply waiting for the appointed time. And when proximity meets purpose, manifestation happens. So don't despise where you are. You're standing in the shadow of something sacred. You're not far from it. You're forming in it. Stay faithful, stay expectant, stay in position. Because when God says now, every not yet in your life will bow. Somebody shout, I'm ready. Ready for what I've been near to. Ready for what I've prayed for. Ready for what's been promised. Because this right here is the season where proximity turns into possession, where nearness gives birth to newness. And where purpose finally meets its moment, you're not just close, you're called. You're not just near, you're next. And when the door swings open, you won't have to chase it. It'll recognize you. So lift your head, square your shoulders, and declare it over your life. I'm in close proximity, and my purpose is about to manifest.